Good morning. This is Glenn Greenidge and Pope. And today we're going to be discussing, there's been a rash of Asian violence against Asian Americans here in New York and all over the country. And so we're going to talk a little bit about it. Tom?
Well, it's interesting to look at we're specifically in the community of Queens, and Queens County, according to the U.S. Senate census, has while 47% of the population is white, we do have 27% Asian. Now, looking specifically at South Queens, we have, let's see, six major churches, but I don't think any of them are really Asian churches. Have you seen Asian churches in South Queens?
I'm not Asian. The only church that I would say would be associated more exclusively with an Asian population is the Moon, Sun Young Moon, and I know that was. I don't even know if that's still a big following, but that's the only Asian church that I know of. That I could specifically, but I think there's been a lot of just a lot of activity, and it's been mostly older Asian people that have been getting attacked. Is what is what I've noticed from the news and what have you, and not well. I have some thoughts about the prior administration calling the COVID the Chinese virus, the Asian virus, and various other derogatory kinds of things that would have it.
Well, the Trump administration had no problem in failing to use language that set people apart. And the very use of that type of language creates in the minds of people who are desperate an anger and rage.
And there's a lot of fear. People are fearful. You're in a pandemic. You're asked to lock down. You're not able to go to socialize. You've got a lot of pent up emotions. You've got a lot of pent up anger, as you mentioned.
Has there been any discussions in the Black church about how to reach out or fight the hatred?
The Black churches have. I know that they've had a couple events in Southeast Queens in support of our Asian brothers and sisters, and I think that it's been talked about. I know that in my church we've talked about it and vilified that kind of activity because churches in general are not about hate; they're about love, and so extending that kind of violence and I would say mentality that doesn't really understand. These are fellow Americans. These are not, even if the flu or the virus was something caused from China, these are Americans that we're talking about. These are not the people who, if in fact it was from China, created in the lab, and that would be where you would have some thoughts about retribution. But I mean, it's just senseless, and I think that people are just striking out just because they're upset, their anxiety, they're stressed out. I think that,
I mentioned the black churches because the community in the black areas are focus a lot of attention on church activity. Um, for the white community, I think 47% of Queens is white.
mhm.
Uh, they have different ways of connecting in terms of voicing social issues. Um, but it would be interesting if a number of different groups came together and had forums and invited, worked with Asian local groups to show a solidarity.
Um, well, there have been political events around the city that have looked to do that, tried to pull together a coalition of people who are from different ethnic groups other than Asian, in solidarity against the violence, specifically against Asians. So there are parts of that as a conversation. In fact, here at Suffolk Boulevard Bid, we've actually went out with the commanding officer for the 103rd and actually visited Asian businesses and assured them that the police would be a little bit more vigilant when it comes to their businesses.
But the police are an authority figure. It would be interesting to get on a grassroots level some kind of interaction between local Asian leaders and local Black leaders, local white leaders in a type of forum.
I agree that that would be something that would be beneficial because conversation. My belief is that with conversation, you can squelch some of the anxiety because what we're talking about is built up anxiety and stress, and I would imagine a lot of falsehoods that have that people repeat on a regular basis that have nothing to do with the truth of the matter. And so, having an open dialogue would actually give people an opportunity to really see what the truth is.
We also have a large segment of Latinos in Queens. And this is another area. It's almost like we should be bringing people together of all groups and having this kind of conversation. I think it would add to a lot of easing of those tensions, as you said.
Absolutely, and I would include the Bengalis, I would include the Sikhs, I would include the Muslims, um, um, the the Jewish faith, all of the faith-based organizations coming together and having a conversation of peace and love. I mean, it's kind of like a concept, but the reality of it is really sitting down and having a discussion um, about what getting along, getting together. I mean, we're all human beings. We're all of one race, the human being race, and um, you know, we've got to keep getting over the things that separate us.
Well, especially the myths, the misperceptions. You mentioned the Sikh community. After 9/11, Sikhs were attacked because people thought they were Arabs.
Yeah,
And even the Arab community wasn't totally responsible for 9/11.
right, exactly. Yeah, so and I think that when you look at these things and you look at the implications and the thoughts, the erroneous thoughts that again separate us rather than bring us together. These things, you know, fester, and again, unfortunately, people have outlets, and from what I can tell, I can't say across the board, but it seems like most of the people that have been um, uh, committing these acts of violence have been under psychiatric or mental um, considerations that I don't know, maybe they weren't on their medication or whatever. But I mean, you know, we have a mental health situation, and COVID has made it worse. And so what we're seeing are a lot of these folks that are striking out. And um, I got bumped by a homeless guy the other day, and um, it's like for no apparent reason. I happened to be walking by him, and he came over and you know didn't quite headbutt me. It's kind of shoulder butted me, but it's like you know if I was a violent, angry person, I might have reacted in a particular way other than just walked away and sloughed it off as a okay, well, he's not having a good day or whatever.
I think, though, this is putting more emphasis on people who have a mental disorder than on the myths that drive the average person. We have a lot of problems, I think, with people who are not fully aware of what's going on around them, being susceptible to the myths. And so they believe some of the silliness that we hear by politicians like the former president.
Yeah, and those kind of rhetoric and hateful speaking, you know, people, you hear it from someone who you think is an authority, and so you believe it and you go with it. And in this day and age, with all the available information and news that's out there, people are having a hard time deciphering what's the truth and what's not. And because there's so many um, alternate versions of the truth that are
Well,
floating around.
well, especially if you're working 2, 3 jobs, what time do you have to research? Which is one reason why you turn to a specific channel, and everyone knows about Fox News, but the watchers of Fox News aren't aware of the content and how the content doesn't match reality.
Right. Yeah, it's a sad story when I miss the days of Walter Cronkite. When you could actually believe what was said, and it was fact checked and verified 2 or 3 times before it was said, rather than just things that are being spewed by pundits that you know some don't have are not in touch with reality. They're inside of their bubble that they've created for themselves.
Well, if you like what you're listening to, if you have some ideas about how we can create a forum, let us know. Um, we are at Community and Social Change on Facebook.